Hello and welcome to Living's World Theatre Day panel discussion. We're zooming in on the evolution of the Sri Lankan stage, the dramatic perspective. With me, I have two powerhouses when it comes to Sri Lankan theatre. On my right, I have Kalakirti Jerome de Silva, who really needs no introduction, but I'm going to try and do justice. He was the founder of the Workshop Players. He's also associated with the Lionel Wendt Workshop Players, the Lionel Wendt Little Stars Workshop Players, the Aragale Players, and Soul Sound Players. Jerome, very nice to have you on the show.
Well, I guess so.
And then, of course, we have playwright Feroze Kamadin, who is also the artistic director of Stage Light and Magic Inc. Thank you, Feroze, for being here.
Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to be here. Right?
Oh my God, cliches! I try to steer away from that.
Yeah, but at every interview, I think we should start off.
I mean, so
with a little bit of an
predictable.
ode to LMD.
Yes, thank you so much, LMD. I mean, thank you, Nicola. Thank you, everybody, for giving us this opportunity. It's an amazing thing, especially. Can you let me talk now? Right. Okay.
Thank you very much. We are honored for the honor.
Most welcome.
So we're going to start off the discussion slightly formal, and then later on we are going to get to know a little bit of the lighter side of these two powerhouses. So starting things off, we want to go on a quick
Firstly,
memory.
just want to clarify, when she says powerhouses, it's not like we are generating any kind of
No,
power
that's
for
what
the
I'm saying. I was just, that was going to be my answer. That was going to be my answer. Wherever we, during the power cuts.
Not only that, they might call and ask us to provide power
or worse.
Privatize us and sell us off. No?
Exactly.
It's a bit
I might be
I think it
hydro
just means
electrified
that,
or whatever
means that
it
we've
is.
been around for a while. Right?
I'll stick to the coal, you stick to the hydroelectricity.
Yeah,
Okay, color and all that, Yes, right.
I'm sure this is going to be one of those interviews. I'm not going to feel that snap. Thank you both. Thank you.
I did warn you the moment you
Yes.
said that it was just Jerome and I. Or is it Jerome and me? My gosh, I can't get this wrong. Jerome, it's LMD.
You saw that Naxi guy.
Sorry.
You saw that Naxi guy interviewing someone. No, he comes to see whether there are Jews in the house.
Oh, that's brilliant.
And-
That was absolutely
Never
brilliant.
mind.
So when you said that's only Jerome and I did say that this was quite possible, right? So because it's being edited, I think.
What do you mean? You point at me and said this was quite possible.
This as in we can be a fairly bad.
I know there is
Yeah.
like a
I mean,
like
you
a,
put us in. I mean, like
there is like a doubt about. You know what I mean?
if
right,
Jerome
but
can make,
you don't
if
have to call
Jerome-
me this.
No. If Jerome can make light of any situation, I have to tell you, one of the funniest 5 minutes I ever spent in my life was at a gravesite in Kanata. Jerome and I were attending a funeral, and we were standing on the outskirts when they were singing, whatever. And Jerome just started being
Nearer my God to thee.
funeral. They were singing hymns, and when they started singing Nearer my God to thee, it's going like, my goodness. Feels like I want to jump in. It's so bad, the singing. And I was laughing so much. It was like I was in the middle of a stand-up comedy performance. Honestly, the funniest 5 minutes I ever spent. And I kept telling Jerome, be quiet, but I couldn't. It just kept me laughing for so long. Anyway, sorry, Rwandi. Sorry, we just get back to the program. World Theatre Day, okay.
World Theatre Day. So
The half an eye is up,
He knows
I
he
think.
did it. He just can't remember which funeral now, right? But he's done it at many funerals.
I wanted to ask who died.
Yeah,
But
no,
I'm
somebody
not going
died, obviously.
So we're going to go down a quick trip down memory lane. Jerome, starting with you.
Yeah.
What would you say are the main or the most significant milestones when it comes to Sri Lankan theatre, and how did these milestones really change the course?
Yeah, if you look at Sri Lankan theatre or theatre in Sri Lanka, right, I mean, going back many decades, we had only the theatre in the Kamatha, right, outdoor with obviously no electricity at that time with Pandang, these nice little torches and all kinds of things with the villages, right, and it was Sokari and Nadagam and Kolam and that sort of the very traditional forms. Even if it was the dance forms, it was to do with the rituals, the Kohamakankari and Devol and Madama and all, Madhu and all those things. Then what happened was the Parsis came to Sri Lanka, and with them they brought proscenium theatre. And then they brought in proscenium theatre. So they used to build these makeshift theatres. And then, of course, it evolved, and the Tower Hall theatre was made, and also the Elphinstone and some of the older theatres, which now don't even exist. And that was when Professor Sarat Chandra decided to bring all the traditional forms of kolam, nadagam, sokori to the proscenium theatre stage. Right? And that's how all these rituals then came onto and even the dance rituals and all of that came onto the stage, to the proscenium stage as we call it. So that was what I would say with the history. So it was traditional forms, then the Parsis brought proscenium theatre to Sri Lanka. Professor Sarat Chandra embraced that culture, but brought in our culture onto the stage, and that's how the Manames and the Singabaus and all those things happened,
Yes. I also want to just make it very clear that Jerome knows so much about it, not because he was there when the Parsis came, but he teaches this as a subject, so he's an expert, right? No, Jerome, I think it's a little bit.
Well, one never knows in my journey to samsara, whether I was there or not.
And let's do here now.
Right.
Now, like,
But
but
54
that was
years.
quite fascinating actually. The history lesson.
Yeah, and now
This
actually
is not
we are
something-
going
it's
back.
not something we
No,
know
I
much.
mean,
I mean,
yes.
we call ourselves
no, and
practicing
now
Jerome,
we are
but
going
to be-
back to the Kamatha actually,
Yes.
because if you think in terms of the universities, there's Sri Pali, there is the Vala in Pera, Denia, there is the open air theatre of Viharamade Park, which of course they've gone and ruined by putting that little shed on top of this stage. But there are a lot of Kamatha things happening, and now, for instance, the BMICH has just opened their outdoor, the Kamatha, the BMICH Kamatha there. So we are going back there actually. Because, I guess because it's so expensive to do proscenium theatre, and things are getting smaller, productions are getting smaller and more affordable because of the situation in the country and the lack of sponsorship and all of that. I don't know whether I'm jumping the gun when I say all this, but then we have been discussing this ourselves.
Yes.
And so the different forms of theatre. So I mean, and it's nice because our people really now, if we call them the Colombo 7 audiences who we attract, actually do not know about these things. So that is what I guess even World Theatre Day is all about. All around the world, where they're bringing the ethnicity and they're bringing that forward. So we are going back to the Kamatha in that sense. Okay, no, I'm not talking about our productions and your forthcoming production and all of that, right? Where we need flies and
Correct.
wings and this and that and everything else, But, going back to, I could call it poor theatre, or whatever it is, not poor, but the way you present stories.
Do you think it will be something temporary?
No, I think because we are in this country, I think we are reawakening our real culture. Our true culture is being reawakened, and especially for the new generations. And it's also on the syllabuses. Right. And I mean, look at how India has got there. I mean, we have, I could say, a richer culture than theirs where these are concerned because we were ahead of them. Right. Okay, we have borrowed stuff from them and all that in our dancing and all that. But otherwise, if you look at our productions, we are way ahead. But look at how they have hit Hollywood with their Bollywood and Collywood and all of that. Whereas we have such an rich culture which we have really not shown the world.
Great start. But Feroze, what is your assessment of the most significant
So
milestone?
the most significant milestone. Well, I would say, first of all, I want to say that when I speak of the theatre, I'm speaking from a strict perspective of the English theatre. of which I'm a part of and which I can speak of. But I think when it comes to the broader theatre, I mean, I know that some of my responses may not be applicable to other forms of theatre, the Sinhalese theatre, the Tamil theatre, and things like that. I think Jerome obviously has far more experience, and I mean, he's worked with all forms of the theatre spectrum, whereas I have only worked in the English theatre, this thing. So for me, I would say, if you ask me what is the most significant development in the last 100 years, I would say that would be the construction of the Lionel Vent, to be very honest with you, because it is our home. It is probably the only theatre that is entirely a non-profit. It's a private trust which is maintained exclusively for the purpose of fostering and promoting the arts. And I mean, let's face it, it's the home of English theatre. And without it, I really cannot envision me having done any plays. I mean, there are some plays that I write which are specifically rigged for the Lionel Vent, right? I mean, it's always been in my, whenever I write a play, even when I read a play, it's always, I quickly map it out in my head as to how it will work at the Lionel Vent, right? Especially if it's a big play, that this thing. I mean, of course, when it comes to big plays, Jerome has done far bigger plays than I. But yeah, so I would say the Lionel Vent, and yeah, it's not many people know it, but I would say that is
Yeah, because Feroze, like if you look at it, while I talk on behalf of theatre in general, and especially the ethnic, or what we call the our theatre, like the Sri Lankan theatre and Sinhala and Tamil and all the dance rituals and dance forms and everything, right? While I talk about all of that, there is one thing that is amazing about the Lionel Vent. Every Sinhala troupe out there, and I work a lot with the Sinhala theatre now, more than the English theatre, right? And the Tamil theatre, and with the universities. Their aspiration is to eventually perform at the Lionel Vent on that stage. And in fact, I've gone out and reached out to them and spoken to the Lionel Vent, and we are encouraging them because, I mean, the costs concern, like if you think about other theatres in the country, like where they normally perform, right, where they did perform. John De Silva has been closed for so many years because of renovations. Lumbini was another cheap hall, or inexpensive hall, should I say, which is also closed for renovations and all of that sort of thing. So, like, you could consider, even though I think, and Feroze will speak about it, I guess, like it is a bit more expensive than those theatres, which are like phenomenally cheap. But even now, even Nada and all those places are raising their prices. And even Elphinstone and Tower Hall, because of the electricity and fuel and all that sort of thing. So that, but still, it is the aspiration of all Sinhala and Tamil troops to perform on the Lionel Vent theatre stage. So we are helping them. Even the Lionel Vent is reaching out to them and helping them in that way. So, because that's අපේ ස්ටේජ් එකටයි Jerome sir අපිට ඒ ස්ටේජ් එකට යන්න ඕනේ අපිට මොකක් හරි කරලා දෙන්න.
Definitely one of the
Yes.
biggest milestones, I would say. Something that I would like, I mean, you talked about like a very illustrious history that we've had. Today, 2023, are we where we should be? And if
Well,
not?
to be very honest with you, from the point of view of English theatre, I think we are not, and I'm not. It's nobody's fault. It's not like anybody dropped the ball or anything. But if you look at it in the height of all the troubles we had, right? I mean, we've gone through lots of strife and trouble as a nation in 81, in 83, in 87, 88, 89. Then later on in the 2000s, there were all these issues. But the theatre kept going. Okay, theatre kept going. There was no this thing. I mean, 1996, right? There was a bomb. There was a big central bank bomb blast, which 400 people died in January. I staged Macbeth in May. You did Les Miserables that year. Okay, Jerome filled out 15 houses at the Lionel Vent with Les Miserables. Theatre went on. People came, we had the audiences. right? I mean, even during the height of the JVP troubles, there was the theater happened, right?
Yeah,
It
I
never
think
stopped.
Feroz, I think that comes to escapism, no?
Maybe, but what I'm trying to
Right,
say,
even with an,
yeah, but
even if the
yeah,
crisis,
yeah,
even now,
but
we are filling theaters
yeah,
again.
but what I'm trying to say is that for 3 years, from 2020, 2021, whatever, the habit of going to the theater was interrupted. Okay, we interrupted that habit. Those days, people had a habit. We want to go to the theater. We want to see what's on at the Lion Event. You ask, I mean, again, forgive me for mentioning the Lion Event a lot, but that's where most of my theater experiences are. But we would know when people would call the Lion Event and ask them what's on next week. They would routinely get 10, 15 calls a day from people who just find out what's on next week, right? I mean, that used to be a thing. But now, no, right? Because that habit, that culture has gone on. Because for 3 years, people found other things to do. Other things to do with their time because there was no theater. Other things to do with their time. And, of course, you have to understand that there are priorities now for most middle class families when it comes to their monthly expenses, right?
Yeah, because earlier,
And
yeah,
theater can be English theater, especially. I mean,
yeah,
if you
because
have two kids and it's a mother and father coming, even if you buy a balcony ticket for $1,000, that's $4,000, maybe another $1,000 on transport, and plays finish late, right? Especially his, right? He's notorious for
mine, mine,
I'm kidding.
you
I'm
take
kidding.
Shakespeare himself has said the 2 hour traffic of our play for Romeo and Juliet, and you took it and made it 3.5 hours, and you put me as Mercutio, and I had to die over and over again singing a rock song.
I know. Sorry,
Thank you.
sorry. No, sorry. Now, where was I? No, see, he completely.
Long plays.
Yeah. No. So coming back to middle class family. So when the play is over, it's not like they can go home and have dinner. They have to have dinner outside. That's another at least 1,500 expense. So now you're talking about for a family of two, or a family of four with two kids. You're talking about an 11,000 rupee expense for one night out. Okay. Now there is a lot of our middle class audience who are actually who cannot make that. So now they have to decide which one do we go for. They can't go for a play every month anymore. It's almost like we can go for only one every 3 months. Okay, people are making those conscious choices, and you can't blame them because times are hard. So I guess now is the time when we have to do both. We have to have more productions, but we also have to work actively on getting more people getting used to the idea of coming for theatre. I always say, criticize as much as you want, but criticize after watching it. Okay? Because if ever anyone comes and tells me, Feroze, I heard that your play was, and tries to give me a criticism, I'll say, you didn't see it, no? If you saw it, you have every right to criticize me, right? Absolutely, every right to criticize me. I have no issues. You were there. You sat in the audience. You invested 2.5 hours or 3.5 hours. I'll be honest. Jerome was giving me that look. You have invested 3.5 hours of your life at the event watching my play. You didn't like it. You liked it. You thought this was draggy. You thought this was not. That's fine. I'll accept criticism. But watch the play for goodness sake, right? That's the least you can expect, right? That's the least you can expect. Watch the play, So it's kind of a,
Yeah,
that
this,
I would say. We need to have more productions, more people on stage, more people coming in newly. I haven't really noticed. I mean, many newcomers coming through because there haven't been many opportunities for them to.
yeah, right. But Feroz, actually, over the last few weeks and the next few weeks as well, there are a whole heap of plays that have been happening, and 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 also singular theatre. Even during the pandemic, after the first lockdown, the Tower Hall and Elphinstone brought in these festivals of plays, which are very nice. And we had audiences coming because it was supported by the government and the Ministry of Cultural Affairs and all of that. And then now again, festivals have begun. I mean, a few months ago, there were 3 festivals happening at the same time. And it was drawing in the crowds. Of course, the prices were very low, 500 rupees a ticket or less. Now again, there's another festival, this Saya Satya, Saya Karas, which is I have seen most of the plays. In fact, when I was the chairman of the jury of the State Drama Festival for the long plays last year, his play fared very well, and so he's having a week of plays at the Elphinstone, where and also at Punchi Theatre and all those places, other plays also happening. Right. So there is a lot of activity.
I'm
Yeah,
saying
there's a lot of
theatre
activity. Yeah.
has just
But
started. It's
then,
nice to see.
yes.
But now, obviously, the audiences also have to come up, right? Because I can tell you, I mean, 96, 97, 98, we had no issues filling out 4 days. 4 days at the line event was okay. People would come. Even a play as serious as Widows, right? Which is like the most amazing story of how Widows got to be produced. We still sold out 4 days, right? And as contrasted recently with the plays that have happened, there have been really good productions which have found it difficult to sell out 4 days. It's difficult now. It's not this thing. So we are talking about a time when we had productions that ran for 10, 12 days, 15, 16 shows,
Sold
you
out.
know, which were all sold out because we had that kind. So I'm saying the audience has got a little bit, the segment has got a little bit smaller. So we need to make active effort to make it bigger. The audience is there. I'm not saying that. We just need to get them back into the habit of coming to the event, you know, having a group of friends who are like-minded, who like to see this thing. So it's that kind of thing, you know. So we have to quietly get back into this thing. Obviously, one of the big things for me is to have the big flagship productions, because if you have those big flagship productions, they kind of do all
Yeah,
the
this
buzz
is,
and bring in. I mean, I've always been telling Jerome, I've been a recipient or a beneficiary of the big flagship productions that have happened. 95 Cats happened. 96 I debuted as a director with Macbeth. Okay, 96 Les Miserables happened. I did Julius Caesar in 97. Right, and I sold out eight.
Again, I died before the interval.
Yes, yeah, of course. Biggest problem is that both the plays that Jerome has acted for me, Romeo and Juliet and Julius Caesar, he's dead before the interval.
Oh my goodness.
When Romeo and Juliet, he was Mercutio, who dies in the third act. And in
Singing a
Julius
rock
Caesar,
song.
Yes. And in Julius Caesar also, Jerome happened, I mean, obviously, Caesar dies in the third act. So both times before the interval. Yes. In fact, I have to tell you this, but the backstage crew, I think after Romeo and Juliet, I mentioned this to them, and they said, "Ayo, please, right? Can you give him a part that keeps him on stage until the end of the play, right? Because handling Jerome backstage is it can be a nightmare. I mean, when Jerome's on stage, you know,
Might as well keep him on
he's
stage.
a pro. He will do his num, even if he doesn't know his lines. He will make it like you have forgotten your lines.
Which is the usual story.
It's a usual story. Anyway, sorry. So
Now
we
you
are
were
digressing.
no problem. You were talking about audiences in terms of volume, in terms of value, as in their ability to appreciate good theatre. How have we evolved as an audience?
Let me put it this way. I have a pet peeve. I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, but for me, it's an unwritten theatre tradition or theatre rule. If you watch a play, the cast takes a curtain call where they bow. Okay? They bow to the audience. Nobody comes to the curtain call and just that. They always do a gesture of bowing or a gesture of respect. It maybe sometimes, according to the character, they might even salute. It's one thing that the cast does because it's live. It's not a movie. It's one thing that the cast does at a live. It happens at an orchestra. It happens at any place where you do a live performance. There's a curtain call, right? And the performer makes a gesture to the audience to say, "Thank you for coming. Thank you for coming. You bought a ticket, I perform. Our contract is over. That's our contract. You bought a ticket for my show, I perform. I don't have to do anything else." But the performer, it's an unwritten theatre performance tradition where you come and you bow. And that bow is to say, "Thank you." It's a pet peeve when people start leaving as soon as the curtain closes. It's a real, I mean, if you didn't like the play, don't clap. Okay? Don't clap. But you get what I'm saying, Jerome. Like they're heading for the exits. I mean, to make up that 1.5 minutes, it's actually a really pet peeve. I really get this thing because it's It's a sign of disrespect. It's like if I'm saying thank you to you and you're turning around and going.
Yeah, see, that happens a lot in Western theatre, what we could call English theatre, I would say Western theatre.
That is because some people
Especially,
keep the place going on for
yeah,
so long,
exactly.
right? People are rushing
They are, they have
to
to
the
rehearse.
restaurant.
That is true.
Last order
But
is at 10:30.
in
To which
contrast,
my
yeah.
response is, it is not my fault that this place goes on for so long. Why can't those restaurants take their last order at 10, 11:30?
Right. But see, the thing is, Feroze, now, I've seen that happening in Western or English theatre, as they call it. I would call it Western theatre, right? Or English language theatre or whatever it is. But the thing is, the difference between our curtain calls, and that's something that I have brought in also into Sinhala theatre, where when they come in, they actually acknowledge the applause of the audience by bowing. And then they go back and keep clapping for the rest of the people to come. Right. And which I have changed from Trojan Kantavo when I did the choreography and to my productions in Sinhala. I've said no. Let the audience clap for you, you don't clap for yourselves.
I completely agree. My gosh.
Right.
No, yeah, even I
So
have
don't clap for
no
yourselves.
flowers on stage. Huh?
Yes,
It's not a
my God, yes,
I just
definitely.
really- no. All flowers
in the
that have
green
been
room.
exchanged and everything and
In the green room.
In the green room. That's it. It's a very, very simple thing.
So yeah, so that's the difference between the curtain calls there.
That's
which,
a pet peeve.
Which I have said, because they come and they're very happy. They call. Then when each person, the crew comes on, they clap for the crew. And sometimes the productions aren't great, and the audience
okay.
is
That's
not, and the
okay.
audience is not clapping, and they are clapping for each other.
No,
Right?
that's
That is
but I'm
so
gonna
that's
say
awkward.
You can not clap if you didn't think that this thing was, but you have to stay.
Yes.
At least for that curtain call to finish, right? I mean, you can this thing.
Yeah.
I think, though. I think.
No, but
I
the
think
problem
I
is
think in
your
some
curtain
ward-
calls take another half an
Yeah,
hour.
I know,
no?
but I think in some vaudeville productions,
That's another
they would
production.
throw stuff and,
Like people,
play-
actually, they used to, because my productions also, the curtain calls used to along. It's another production, and then he followed suit, and so between the two of us,
So now that we've gone down memory lane, it's time to come to the most important day this year, World Theatre Day. So this year, like
yeah,
like you were sharing with us, the ITI, the International Theatre Institute, picked out Egyptian actress, veteran Egyptian actress.
she's 91 years, by the way.
91, yes. And she was picked out to give the message. And immensely impactful message. But if I read out one single line where she invited thespians to, I quote, stand together to awaken the conscience of the entire world and search for the lost essence of humanity. Given Sri Lanka's prevailing context, you name it, social, economical, political, how relevant is this message for us, for Sri Lankan theatre right now, to awaken the conscience of humanity?
You see, the thing about World Theatre Day and the ITI, right? The theme every year since inauguration in 1961, and when they started celebrating it in 1962, and it has gone on unhindered. Because even during lockdown, we used to all be online and Zoom and this, that, and the other, and we used to all commemorate this over 36 hours from all parts of the world, right? In fact, it will happen again this year. The World Theatre Day theme has always been theatre and a culture of peace, right? And a culture of peace. And the ITI core values are inspiration, inclusiveness, collaboration, and transparency. So when you think about that, and they believe that that's how theatre or dance or any of the art forms, even if it is painting, sculpture, all of that is now involved in, which started off as for the performing artists, now has become much broader. And the ITI is UNESCO affiliated, right? And ITI also has a voice at the United Nations, right? Because we have brought up various issues about people being jailed for writing things, like especially the Spanish authors and even the Iranians and Syrians and all that sort of thing. So I guess that is why we speak about that. That's why we speak about that. Yeah, now if you think about it, over the last few months or maybe 1.5 years, we have had this political upheaval, and it has been the people, the voice of the people, the common man, if you could call it that. I don't like to say common man, but the masses raised up their voice, and and I mean, it is like now. So as a result, what is coming out in theatre and even in dance and all of that is very politically skewed, and there is still a lot of criticism and still, wanting change and that sort of thing. And but Feroze has been doing it like for quite some time now. But of course, it was in a humorous way and taking digs at the politicians, even in their own stalls or in their
Yes.
in temple trees or whatever it is.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
and we have had presidents, who could laugh at themselves. Well, whether it was acting or what,
I have no idea, but
that was
yeah.
an excellent audition for them.
Yes, I know.
That you
I know.
conducted,
I know.
very good.
They were very good. Yes, it's also I don't know, for me. I feel that I mean, since Jerome brought up Puspedilla, I sometimes I do wonder whether, and I know this is going to be very unpopular when I say it, whether it actually missed its mark. See, and this thing I've been exploring it for a while. When you think about, when you say laugh at yourselves, right? I mean, that's essentially what stand-up comedy does. And I have a lot to do with stand-up comedy with Freddie and stuff like that. And I'm actually planning a new stand-up show as well. So when you laugh at yourself, you normalize yourself, right? You become more human. You become more accessible. Okay? That's basically what laughing at oneself is about everywhere, right? If you get up and you laugh at yourself, your community, your school, your habits, your society, that's what stand-up comedians essentially do. But you normalize those people. You normalize themselves. It's like, they are one of us, they are laughing. So I'm just wondering whether Puspedil, all these politicians came, they laughed. We are now normalized, we are all okay, we are sorted, we can go back and do the same things that we have done. This is because it almost felt like they were going like, that fellow has nothing to do with me. He doesn't look like me. Okay, he's speaking English slightly better than me anyway, right? So it can't be that he's me. Yes, he's still bearing the same portfolio as I, but he's in Asik land, not in Sri Lanka, right? And he's doing the same dumb things as I, right?
But-
Is it as I or as me? As me. Sorry. So as me, right?
Yeah.
But it was almost like they got normalized. It's almost like they got normalized in the process, and I don't know whether this. And I know people had a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun doing it for sure, and I know lots of people had a lot of fun. There were a lot of emotional. Sometimes I wonder. Sometimes you wonder. Did you miss your mark?
This actually, I'd like to read another little bit from Amiha Ayub, which might answer your question, which I can't remember.
This is usually what happens in these interviews, Jerome.
Exactly.
Right? They ask you.
I mean, we digress so much.
At least I would like to give a nice shout out to Ruandi at this point for framing her questions in a few sentences
all
instead
right.
of going on for 5 minutes.
Right, so
and
anyhow.
asking a question, then answering it herself. Then
This
asking
always
another
happens
question,
with
and then all we
usually.
have- then all we have to do,
Usually,
Jerome, is say, yes, Ruandi, you're absolutely right. Now go on. Next question.
Now, usually I'm the one who's very verbose, but when it comes to, in normal circumstances, but when it comes to Feroze, I mean, we had these 1.5 hour long conversations until the battery runs down, and I tried to get in words sideways, at least one word. As soon as I get in half a syllable, I'm cut off. So anyhow, getting back to
This is how bad it is when we
Samia.
speak to each other. We can speak to each other for 1.5 hours.
Oh my God.
And then I'll have to call him back.
Not we, he
Yeah.
speaks.
Okay.
And then I have to call him back and
Now,
say,
why
by the
did-
way, Jerome, I called you for this. I've forgotten what I called
Right,
you.
now can I get back to Sabia Ayub?
Ayub.
Right, because she says, I'm not exaggerating when I say that what we do on stage is the act of life itself and generating it from nothingness, like a burning ember that sparkles in the darkness, lighting the darkness of the night and warming its coldness. So I guess we are the ones who give life splendor. We are the ones who embody it. We are the ones who make it vibrant and meaningful. And we are the ones who provide the reasons to understand it. Yeah, I think so. That could go back to, I guess, answering that question, because we as artists, that's what we're there for. I mean, I can tell you that Feroze and myself, for us, it's more than a hobby now. It started off as a
Oh,
hobby.
definitely, yeah. It
It
started off
started
as a
off as
hobby.
a hobby, because there is actually no money in it. Right, right. Because now, if you're going to do it, so I was doing advertising, I was doing broadcasting, and then I just did theater. And then, because I loved to get on stage, I never thought I would become a director or any such thing. Right. So, and then he came on as a sweaty little ruggerite at 14 years when I was helping DS. And that's how I guess he sort of got an interest in it.
And believe it or not, that's the only time when my name is mentioned and the word ruggerite is mentioned after
know,
that.
I've
That-
never
yeah,
heard
no,
it.
no, no, no. That's the only time. Because other than that, I have done absolutely nothing of note on a rugby field. And I know all my fellow schoolmates and all my teammates will testify. Feroz was on the team.
The
What did
smell
he-
remained, though. The smell
Did
remained.
do nothing. Didn't do anything.
I know, I was thinking.
No. It was just
I
a
did
very
not
brief,
find this on
very
Google.
brief period. My entire, all my family was at DS. Three of my cousins captained the school, so it was like considered that we had to go and do it. My brother played, so I just went along, and they kept me. I think mostly because I could speak a little bit of English, whatever. So it was fine. So it was okay.
You were a crack debater also.
Yeah, well, that was okay. Debating drama was fine, but I know you were. I know you look surprised when he said they came as a ruggerite. So
No, but that time,
not a ruggerite like a
You know,
proper ruggerite, right? A ruggerite like who knows the game. I like the game.
in that very, very, how long ago was that? 1990,
He has some
1989.
serious questions to ask.
Yeah, and that was
Yes.
when I told that girlfriend of mine at that time, I said, look at that guy, he will make it someday.
So, talking about your journeys, I mean, from the time you started with that, maybe the first performance, today you've opened up the stage to so many people. Like, I don't even know where to start and where to end. And you keep opening it up. So, in this light, I want to quote something else from Ayub in her speech. She said, and I quote, "So take your feet out of the mire of wars and bloody conflicts and leave them at the door of the stage." When we look at leaving things at the door of the stage, not just conflicts, we eventually come into the topic of how theatre is all about inclusivity. Just want to ask you the importance of really driving this inclusivity today for Sri Lanka.
Yeah, because I would say that in a way, my theatre life has evolved in I say a very strange way over the last few months or 1.5 years. The more, because I've got more involved now in Sinhala and Tamil theatre and the universities and university students, and you know what that means. Right. You know what that means. It means protests. It means this. I'm also part of the Artists of the People's Movement, which was started because of the problems we had last year. And as artists, what voice do we have where those things are concerned? Right. The political upheavals, the economic situation, financial situation of the people, as well as I mean, all the crises we have faced. I don't have to go through all of that. So, I mean, and it affects the people. Because you see, the thing is that also the ITI or World Theatre Day is one of the main things is unifying cultures and establishing peace. Now, we, as the Artists of the People's Movement, we believe in doing things in a peaceful manner. And what we believe is that art and culture can bring about that unification. And where inclusivity or inclusiveness is concerned, yes, I think I was one of the pioneers of bringing in hundreds and hundreds of new people onto the stage and all that sort of thing. And, like even where the schools are concerned, teaching in the schools, and that continues. But at the same time, there's another side of me that is looking at the masses, at the bigger picture, not our Western theatre audiences only. I'm looking at, 90% of the people in this country. And that's why I'm talking about unifying and inclusivity or inclusiveness where that is concerned. More of the population and bringing them in, right, and using the artists to come up with a unifying process for peace. Right. And we as artists, we are not those slogan shouting types and people who jump into strange swimming pools and sit on chairs and bring down four-poster beds and things like that. As artists, we shouldn't be. We have to think of the aesthetics of our art. Right. So while there are so many ways we can bring out political change. I mean, look at what Arthur Miller did with in 1953 with him writing The Crucible. Okay, which was a comment against Senator McCarthy and McCarthyism. Because in 1952 or 51, China became Red China. And so therefore, they had this view that the Chinese people are the people of the devil because they didn't believe in a God. And then McCarthy, Senator McCarthy, he brought in this, he stopped all immigration into New York because most of the people were Chinese.
There was the famous McCarthy witch hunt,
yes,
where they hunted people.
The Salem witch hunt.
The McCarthy witch hunt. It was called the McCarthy witch hunt.
McCarthy witch hunt, and these people were all put in jail for anti-Americanism. But he based it on the 16th century Salem witch hunts. He based the story. Right, and he had documented things. That was one of the plays of his where he didn't have to write all the speeches himself because those were already recorded. Right, and so we can do the same thing. We can use our past. We can use our whole history of Ellara and Vijaya and this and that and the political upheavals from the first tsunami that happened during Kalanithisa's time to, Viharamadevi and all that, we can, and draw the parallels to today. Wow. Right, we can easily do, and I have written a play like that. It's called Dakuna, right, so you can imagine. So I'm waiting for the correct time when to do it.
Now you did Akuna.
Akuna.
You are
yes.
doing Dakuna.
Yes.
Don't tell me the next one is Makuna.
No.
Right? You have to find
the next one. The next one will be a children's play called Pokuna.
There you go.
Then Lakuna.
Lakuna. Okay, yes. Good. Lakuna can be a place.
Yes.
See, that's Jerome's. Now you have to do a
five-part
epic.
That and awakening people to say nothing has changed. Nothing has changed from that into the insurrection to the 30-year war to what's happening now. Nothing has changed. And JVP time, the first JVP uprising, the next JVP uprising. So nothing has changed. Yeah, I don't know. So to make people aware of that. Once they're aware of that, hopefully they will change.
Thank you. Thanks, Jerome.
So from my perspective, yes, I do believe that and as I said, I'm going to speak predominantly from the point of view of my English theatre background in Colombo, and I have to say that yes, I am guilty of being a bit exclusive in that department because when we've had only one little show that we did out of Colombo, everything else has been centered in Colombo. Most of them, 90% of them at the event, apart from a few dinner theatres outside and the Meow Comedy Club show at the Galadari. But the real power of and we talk of the English theatre production, we all talk about the power of performance, right? Actually, the performance is the icing on the cherry, to be very honest with you. Because we've had some actors who've been brilliant and then haven't really, performance there. But it is the power of that process. From the time you first walk into a rehearsal, you know some people, you don't know some people, right? And everybody in the room is joining that team for the first time. They may have been in other teams with other people for the first time, but that particular team of cast, which is for, let's say, Les Miserables, that's the first time that unique combination of people have been assembled by the artistic director. And now, the power of the process is not just learning the words and learning lyrics and songs. It's about, especially in Colombo's English theatre, it's about honing your skills. There are many, many, many singers who come in who are maybe just average singers, But after their first play, after their second play, they've gone on to become just, am I right, Jerome? They become stunning singers. Their talents get honed. They
On the West End as well now.
Exactly.
From the workshop players, exactly.
It's not just about that. It's about that feeling of fulfillment, that enormous joy of being part of something that you do not because you have to, because you want to. You go to university because you have to study. You go to a restaurant because you have to eat. You take part in theater because you want to.
Not for the experience, or not for what's the other word? The operative word was
Exposure.
exposure.
No. It's
definitely
about being
not
part of
where
it.
the two of
No,
us are concerned.
I can tell you, for a lot of the actors, it's about meeting new people. It's about adding to your network. It's about that feeling of amazing fulfillment, that emotional fulfillment that comes out of doing something that you don't have to do it, but you do it because you can. You get on stage and sing a song. You belt out a solo, not because you have to, but because you can, Jerome. And that's that amazing feeling. I've been given a talent. I mean, if you're a lawyer or an accountant, I mean, how many times in your job do you have the opportunity to get up and start belting out a song? You don't. But you have that ability. You have that ability. And theater, for me, especially in Colombo, it gives people that amazing opportunity to use that ability that they have, to hone the skills that they have. And so for me, that process, the power of the process is often forgotten. But if you take, I mean, you ask anybody who's been in a production, a workshop place production, or one of those big ones where, you get to meet so many people, you end up with so many friends, you end up with this thing, and they'll tell you that they don't just remember the performance. No, they remember all those things that happened in that process of them meeting new friends, growing as people. To be very honest with you, there's almost a sense of, they kind of, am I right?
Absolutely.
They begin
And the
growing.
family, the whole this
That's right.
family, and which keeps growing and growing and growing. But
For me, that's kind of really, really
in
this
a
thing.
way,
And I speak as someone who Stage Light and Magic was at one time very inclusive, and then we did become very exclusive. I have to put my hand up and I have to admit that Jerome knows this. We've had many conversations and discussions about it, and my decision to make it back into an inclusive thing. I mean, he was one of the first people I consulted, right? And why I decided to make it very inclusive, because when we made it exclusive, we began to lose the soul of why we did it in the first place, right? You get what I'm saying, right? It was this thing. So that's kind of for me what it was about. So
yeah, and so actually, when you spoke to me about something that you're going to do this year, later in this
so
year,
now
in
that's finished.
October.
No, now can we let Jerome say what he wants to say?
Right, so
Because
in
he's
October.
dying to say this. Okay.
Right,
I'll give you an introduction. Let me give you an introduction.
She's the person who's
Yes,
doing
but
it.
now
No,
I'm
you-
handing
clearly
over the
she's hand. Okay.
torch.
So, for those of you who don't know, he's my guru, he's my mentor, and he's right. I know they said about leave your, that statement was leave your troubles behind and your muddied boots on this thing. Literally, that's what I did. I left my muddied rugby boots outside and walked in for a rehearsal. So I walked in on stage literally. And what Jerome taught me was not Shakespeare in particular, although my love for Shakespeare comes from him clearly, but it was more a passion for the stage. It's a passion for the stage, right? A passion for the performing arts, which I'm ever grateful for. And which, to be very honest with you, he came to DS. It's not like he was at DS. He helped us start. I mean, he was the linchpin on which we started our entire drama tradition on, right? And today, DS has produced 13 best actors. We've won the competition several times, the Shakespeare competition, and we've produced many people who go on to still involved in English theatre today, right? So one of the things that I'm a playwright, and he's got the
Playwright.
workshop players, and so I wrote a new musical, right? And
See, I was
the
going to
rest
say
is him.
all that.
The rest is him. Okay. So I've written a musical,
been-
and I'll let Jerome speak.
Stale news.
Is that how Jerome-
Yes. Yeah, I know I've got on in age and all that, but you do give me a chance. Anyhow, yeah. So then Feroze called me and he said, blah, 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 sent me this wonderful note and all kinds of things. And I have the three different scripts that evolved since 2019 up to now. I've not
get
seen.
back to you on that
I've
one.
not
I'll
seen
get
on
back
the
to you on
fourth. I've not seen the fourth script, and it was lovely because he said, "Okay, I'm stage light and magic, and actually this is because it's the comedy angle of it. So it's called stage fright and panic. Yeah,
theatre company that's doing it is
yeah.
called Stage Fright and Panic. Okay?
But the thing is, like, so he is collaborating with the workshop players, right? And all the actors and all that, and even the artistic director is Surendi S. Vijayaratna, who is the artistic director of the workshop players for the big musical productions, which we call the October Show. And I will remain as artistic director for the more serious things and the singular theatre and the evolving of new stuff and that sort of thing. You see, so that will how it started from 2017, where he directed My Fair Lady. Then in 2018, for Greater Shows, we had so many directors and so many choreographers and all of that. So it was inclusiveness of everybody, not just actors, but people,
So I think
directors,
the
and all
October,
of that.
yeah.
So and I am like, like, okay, I can't live forever. I'm already 71 plus, for goodness sake. So even though I
Not that
my
he
hair,
doesn't want to, but
I
yeah.
I
It's
colored
just that-
my hair
I
day
mean, I'm
before.
just saying.
I colored my hair.
If there was an
recently.
option, okay.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah. So then he came up with this idea, and because of various things, we've also going through a bit of a financial crisis because we had not got sponsors over the last few years. And then he came up with this idea, and I said, "Speak to Suren." And so it's a collaboration, and it's very nice, a very interesting whole thing because, as he was saying, it's about the process that we go through as directors, as actors, as producers, as technical staff, as backstage,
Exactly, yeah.
the whole kit and caboodle in this wonderful experience that's going to happen in October. Right, and I like
You can tell the name, sir. No
right.
problem.
So it's called Julius Caesar. It had to be
The musical.
The musical.
The musical. Wow.
Right. So very interesting lyrics, extremely funny, and well, at least for people who have been involved in theatre for this is my 54th
So-
year.
so
It's
I
extremely
yeah.
funny and being so. I work a lot on Shakespeare now with the schools and all that sort of things. So it is extremely funny. And it's going to be fun. It's going to be a mega production because those workshop players are involved. No?
correct,
So
correct.
it has to have all the razzmatazz and the
of course I have to tell you
razzle and
there
all
are
that.
some things when I discuss with Jerome and he laughs for the joke and I then tell him, Jerome, only you and 5% of the audience is going to get
Get
that.
this
He said,
joke.
that's okay. That's okay.
That's
Let us
okay.
get it because some of those references you have to know multiple Shakespeare plays and you have to know multiple
and
sort of cultural.
multiple squabbles and multiple idiosyncrasies of us.
That's right. Yeah.
Right. So,
So that is the first sneak peek of what's to
Yes.
come in
Absolutely.
October.
It's happening in
To
October.
read
No, but
upon your
it's
Shakespeare.
Yes.
right. I mean,
And I think auditions are happening in April.
Lovely,
end of April.
lovely. First sneak peek coming your way. Thank you. Thank you so much
Yes,
for that.
actually, this is the first announcement we are making officially.
Absolutely.
Yeah? So,
Amazing.
all the people in workshop players, please note you are doing a production in October, and everyone at Stage Light and Magic, we're doing a production in October.
And Stage Fright and
Yes,
Panic.
and the theatre company that's actually doing it is called Stage Fright and Panic. So it's a combination.
And
of both.
there are I must tell you there are some politicians now who were workshop players, right, when they were attained the age of 16 and all, and very vociferous politicians who want to join.
Excellent.
Ooh.
Excellent. Well, as I say, Jerome keeps giving me casting recommendations, and I keep saying, not my call, playwright, and I point to Suren and go, artistic director. His call.
So we've talked of the serious side of things, and you've touched on my last question. So we
Was
don't
it
have to go there.
serious?
Okay.
Slightly,
Yes, yes.
with hints of informality coming in. So, just a very quick fire round. What are your pet peeves when it comes to working with casts and crews? Tough question.
Okay. So, chapter 1, 1.1a. This is going to take a long time.
No, it's a quick fire thing, this one.
No. I don't. I really detest people coming late. It's something that really bugs me because I consider it a sign of disrespect to everybody who comes early or who comes on time. You know, it's like my time is not as important as your time, right? And one of the things I've noticed is that the people to whom I'm working with, as opposed to 96 to now, they're all slightly older, they're responsible, they're adults, some of them are married, they've got kids, right? So when they turn up on time for a rehearsal, every 5 minutes, I mean, I have a kid myself, so every 5 minutes that I'm wasting, I could have actually spent with my family, right? So don't waste. That is definitely a pet peeve. Things don't happen on time because even when we move into the venue for rehearsals, I have a very strict time plan which I need to follow. So I'd like everyone. That's probably my biggest pet peeve, to be very honest.
Thanks, Nana. Jay, your biggest pet peeve.
Body odor.
Well, that too, but yeah.
Are you? You're not going
But
to
I
change the
can,
answer.
but I can,
No,
I can
no,
fix
because
that with deodorant. Late coming, I can't. No, I can fix
Yeah.
body odor with deodorant. People coming late is a
Body
issue.
odor, no. You can't fix it with deodorant unless you bathe at home and then wear it. And that's what I keep telling them because otherwise they come and when we do musicals and we are doing this very vigorous and this vigorous choreography and dancing and all kinds of things. And I keep
Yes,
telling the
yes,
boys
actors, yeah.
and some of the girls, please. You know, the main thing about an actor is you should be the sense of hygiene that you should have. And I tell this to my singer actors
No,
as
anyway,
well. and all that.
the stage, for those of you who don't know, can be a very hot place on performance night, right? You need a lot of lights, and those lights are generally quite hot. Of course, there is an
And
AC,
the
but it
thing is,
doesn't
the
really
main
cover.
thing is, I feel, I don't know, I'm very sensitive to smell. And as I said, this Mehdi Ragarite at
This
14
also-
years
yeah.
walked in. And,
No, of course, this- you know that
and that
Jerome-
has remained, you know. So the thing is, my pet peeve is definitely, because I
Now
can
you're
cope.
making it sound like I have body odor.
I
This is a
have-
really bad thing, right?
I
So
had,
it can be, and of course he's
I
opened
had-
it out. Now you can actually
I had
get a
I had
sponsor.
this.
You can get a
The
really
thing
good
is because
sponsor.
I am so strict. I am so strict, and one stare from me will make them actually come on time. Because
sweat.
otherwise, yes, and right, if they are late,
Next
they have a
question.
whole heap of
Next question.
Next question.
Excuses.
And this is going to be a sweet ending of sorts. I wanted to ask, what was your secret ritual on opening night? Is that okay? Yeah, all right. Can we start with you, Jay?
Yeah, actually, and Feroze knows this, having been in some of my productions, that my opening night and for the workshop players and soon to be with
Stage
other
fright and
companies
panic.
as well.
Stage fright and panic.
Is, and with my singular troupe and all that, is the opening night is the final dress, light and makeup rehearsal, which is the day before opening night, so that they get rid of the fluttering nerves and the butterflies in the stomach and all kinds of things. So, and at that, I have a ritual which I have learned from a long time ago from other directors I've worked with when I was an actor, of handing over the show, right, to the stage manager.
That happens
And
officially.
that's
yeah.
where the stage manager, I hand the show over and I go onto the stage and join the cast. That is something I do.
So for
Thank you, Jay.
so for most of my shows, obviously I'm not in the cast, and I have a very specific ritual around opening night. So like Jerome said, yes, the night before I will, after we do our final dress and lights and we have the final cast chat, we do I hand over the production officially to the stage manager, and after that I am there only in they say just a butterfly capacity. So I am there only to speak to an actor if an actor is having a problem, or to I mean, I really don't get involved in anything. So I have a very specific ritual that happens. This thing. So I come in and I have obviously the producer and the stage crew gets a dressing room. So I use that dressing room. So irrespective of what's going on, at about 6 o'clock, I have a wash. I brush my teeth, and then I will change what I'm wearing. I'll wear I always wear black, even though I'm watching from the audience. And then I do my prayer, and then I step out, and then there will always be a can of energy drink and a chewing gum for me. And then I go off, I'll light that, and I'll do something that I can't mention because it's not good. And then the cast will be ready for my cast talk. and that should happen anytime before 7:15. And after that, I go out to the annual event, the corridor, and I specifically greet people who come in. And then when the show opens, I'm always from the point of view of the stage. I'm on stage left at the corner end. I stand and watch the show. That's my routine every night, opening night every night. So there's no real specific routine for opening night, as it were, but that's my routine every night of performance.
Thank you.
Yes, there's also something with a hanky, but we won't go into that.
Thank you, Nana. And yeah, I think that's a wrap. We've been talking to Jerome and Feroze about all things theatre, and we thank you for joining us today. Happy World Theatre Day, and until we see you next time, take care.